Speaking of covering everything, we've saved the worst for last. You know, this actually, it wasn't a bad program, as you said. Things were, the stupidity was kept to a minimum. There was a couple good matches. There was some good promos, little angle business going on. And then they decided, let's just take a shit on everything for the last 15, 20 minutes of the show. Here comes the Dork Order. All the names that are in the Dork Order, whoever they are. If you know them, you know them. If you don't, I didn't write them down. I don't care. But they were all dressed as Bambi or as cowboys or a horse or fucking whatever. It was ridiculous before we even got to the super elite of the Twinkle Toes, Hardly Boys, Adam Cole contingent, who were all dressed as the Ghostbusters. And they come down to the ring, and the Hardly Boys are making the faces and walking funny. And there's Michael knock it the fuck off in a sumo suit with a baby bonnet on. And the Dork Order jobber that looks like Little Brutus, Google it, folks, is the one that wrestled in the Bambi costume. And unfortunately, Adam Cole was going along with this horseshit wholeheartedly. And they didn't have a match, so there's no sense in trying to critique the work or describe what happened. It was all a chance for all of them. What was it, an 8-man or a 10-man with all the goofs running around the ring? You couldn't tell, but it was a chance for them all to fucking play with their friends and do a Saturday Night Live sketch and make mockery of wrestling. This was a wrestling parody segment. The things that people used to do and the things that people used to say, people that didn't like wrestling, that wanted to knock wrestling, hated wrestling, wanted to browbeat you if you were even a wrestling fan, the things that they would say about wrestling and wrestlers is everything that these guys do in the middle of a match. Funny, hokey, stupid, fake, choreographed, contrived silliness. Excrement. At one point, his quote was, "Evil Uno splashed the proton pack." And poor Jim Ross, who, by the way, as we've mentioned, and we said get well soon and best wishes to him. He just got diagnosed with skin cancer. He's got cancer on his leg, and now he's got to sit there in front of that and have to try to figure out a way to lend his voice to this. So when Excrement says, "Evil Uno splashed the proton pack," JR has to say, "Not the proton pack." He actually called them, I quote, "idiots," and quote, "these guys run this place," unquote, but he put it in the context of commentary. So he could actually say what he really thought about these fucking jackoffs that he was having to suffer the presence of and still made it fit the commentary. That was pretty fucking slick. But however, this match was the biggest bunch of self-trained amateur backyard mud show assholes that I've ever seen assembled in one ring, pretending openly to have a parody wrestling match, not trying to make anybody believe it, not trying to make anything legitimate, just playing in costumes. The Saturday Night Live sketches from the 70s that I referred to with Dan Aykroyd and Jane Curtin had more professional-looking work than you saw in this thing. And in 5 years, when they do the rise and fall of AEW documentary on the cock, the question is going to be, how did a company with national cable television, a billionaire backer, CM Punk, Bryan Danielson on the roster, Jim Ross, the voice of wrestling, on the microphone, how did that company fail? All they'll have to do is show 5 minutes of footage of the Hardly Boys and old Twinkle Toes here and one interview clip of Tony Khan Adderalled out of his mind, and everybody's going to fucking understand. For about 5 minutes or so, all 8 or 10 of them, or whoever the fuck was even, did they even bother to have teams? Nobody ever tagged. They just got in and did moves to each other over and over in turn, standing there waiting for them while the corpse referee watched useless. And then they super kicked the referee. Then they did some more ridiculous choreography where they would all stand there and wait for everyone to get in the right place, and then they would jump into them with their proton packs or whatever. And the referee's, of course, still down, but there hadn't been a tag in 10 minutes. It doesn't matter anyway. A horse ran in, and they beat the horse up. Don't get mad, PETA. It was a fake horse, just like all these people are fake wrestlers. Because then once they beat the horse up, then they pulled the horse's head off of the horse's ass, and it was Brandon Cutlet, that small, bland piece of white meat, with his mouth taped up so he couldn't alert them that he wasn't the fucking, he was blah, blah, blah. Oh my God, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is in the ring behind us. So let's have Pie Face Jackson of the Hardly Boys. I've got a raging clue, you do? Well, let's follow that raging clue. He gets a raging clue that the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man in the ring behind him, and I've never said those English words in that order before, is really Adam Page instead of the horse. And he turns around with a shocked face, and there's Page as the Marshmallow Man, and he beats up the heels, and everybody hugs. And I don't know what the... I apologize, ladies and gentlemen, when I'm wrong. I admit it. And when I have misled you down the garden path, I admit that too. I apologize for endorsing young Adam Cole all this time. It's worse because the Hardly Boys and Twinkle Toes can't do this stuff right. They're not believable. They're not as believable a promo as Adam Cole. None of their work is as believable as Adam Cole. They can't do it right, so they do it this way. But Cole can talk, and he can work, and he's worked for a professional company, and he knows how to put a match together. So now apparently he's just doing this to jack off because it's easier and fun for him and his buddies. So I apologize for my banner carrying for Adam Cole now. Remember, at least it took 10 years for me to be disappointed. Remember, I liked Mance Warner the first time I saw him, and 3 months after I saw him for the very first time, he's on the internet wrestling the Invisible Man. So that wasn't a big letdown. I had to apologize for that, but it wasn't a big... But I've been promoing Adam Cole for 10 years. Since I saw him when he was 19 or 20, I told Delirious, that's a smart, mature kid. Listen to the way he cuts a promo already. Look at his work. He's going to be a star. I thought he had his shit together. He was the most serious guy in NXT, the one you always wanted to hear talk, the one you wanted to see what the fuck was going to happen with the matches. 3 weeks in this fucking lunatic asylum, and he's having parody matches with jobbers dressed as a Ghostbuster and just jacking off. I apologize to everybody. And Adam, if you hear this, I apologize. I'm sorry. We had a nice run. But I honestly thought you were more professional than this. I never dreamed that this you could have put a list of 20 or 30 guys up, and whoever it was, if you said, Cornette, which one of these is least likely to go be a fucking jack-off comedy wrestler with a bunch of idiots instead of showing his talent, I would have put Adam Cole at the bottom of that list. I see I was wrong, and I apologize.
He hangs out with a bad crowd.
Well, but
that's
you know
why
what?
I wouldn't have put him at the bottom of the list. This doesn't surprise me.
Just like the question was asked in the movie The Bad Seed. Was it heredity or environment? And I'm sorry, but you can pick the people you hang out with. And these are not the ones he ought to be hanging out with. So I will probably watch Adam Cole single matches if he ever has any again, especially if it's against somebody else I want to see, but I'm done. I've had enough of, if they can fucking trash Adam Cole, they can trash anybody. 3 weeks and he's a fucking outlaw jack off. What's next week? Is he going to take a bump for an invisible hand grenade next week? So No more of these multi-man matches with Adam Cole. The only reason I've suffered through the Hardley Boys and Twinkle Toes of the past few weeks to begin with was to see Adam Cole. I will not make that sacrifice again. You know, they say never meet your heroes. Yeah. Don't keep track of your proteges either.
This match made me miss the seriousness of Orange Cassidy. This was just embarrassing. And look, you know, I'm a little more lenient than you when it comes to funny stuff or just warm-hearted stuff around wrestling, even when it makes no sense. I'm a little more lenient than you. There was nothing that I could think of in my head that could have justified this main event. It was one of those matches that you see, that I see. Again, everyone's different. That I'm embarrassed to be a wrestling fan. If someone who I knew from outside of wrestling, who I knew from business, or someone I run into it from town, or someone from the kid's school, if they said, hey, you know, I watched that wrestling the other night. You talk about that show? I would be embarrassed. It was awful. And again, I like stupid humor, and I like the Ghostbusters. I like a lot of the things referenced here. It's just they can't do it. It comes across as just silly, and their humor is always stupid. And they're like Jericho. Everything's about the cheap pop. Everything's about the bad humor.
But everything with these assholes is about, let's see how we can make fun of our own business. Let's see how we can make fun of wrestling as much as possible. Let's make it look as silly as possible. Let's make wrestling look as phony and stupid and silly as possible so that everybody wonders, why the fuck am I watching this? That's their goal. That's what they're going for. Because every time you see them, that's what they do. Let's make fun of our own business. Let's make sure that everybody knows that we're taking none of this seriously and it's all a fucking joke. And I have been warned against wishing death upon people on the internet, so I will merely say that I wish that they would all be placed in a meat grinder and ground down to small, insignificant little meat capsules that can then be distributed to various wild animals around the area.
Well, as long as you're helping the animals, I think some people.
As long as we're helping the animals. See, there's a silver lining in that.
You know, there was a lot of planning, obviously, that went into this, from getting the outfits to coming up with all these intricate spots in the middle of the match. A lot of planning, which means Tony Khan okayed this thing multiple times on the way to get here.
And when you think of the time that they could have spent actually trying to do something to make a good program instead of take the piss out of the wrestling business. I don't know what. Here, is it the thing with the Bucks that they were just so bitter because nobody would book them to the level that they, in their minds, imagined that they should be at, until finally they got together with the fucking group and there was the mass hypnosis where people thought, oh shit, Bullet Club's over. Then they find out it's just the t-shirts because people thought it had something to do with guns. And by then they've hoodwinked Ring of Honor into bringing their package there. And then they hoodwink a billionaire. Are they now trying to get even with wrestling in general and with all the wrestlers that were more talented than they were by saying, we're going to make this shit look as silly and stupid and phony as possible and make everybody laugh at it? And they'll all be laughing with us instead of at us like they used to when we tried to wrestle. And when Harpo made his butt plug just fell out faces and people would laugh. Well, now we're really going to make them laugh, but we're going to make them laugh at wrestling and good wrestlers. Is that their fucking mission?
I don't know. I just think they were raised wrong.
Well, we know about that crackpot conservative family they come from, but anyway.
It's not good. I mean, the thing to me is it's just not good. Even if you like the Bucks matches or Omega matches, and I like Omega a lot more than I like the Bucks. This brand of this off brand of humor sucks. And it wasn't the thing in wrestling until Vince McMahon where Halloween meant you had to do stupid shit on your show, where you had to dress in costumes and do dumb shit. I don't remember lots of wrestling shows with that ever. So I don't know.
Remember Vince started in the late 80s with the Halloween thing and the costumes. And well, even though it wasn't Halloween at WrestleMania because it was Caesar's Palace, JR had to wear the toga. Yeah. And then Halloween Havoc came up with WCW. I think the first one was in 89.
Yeah.
And
by 1990, they had makeup for Paul Lee, and they went pumpkins around and all sorts of things.
I was about to say, by 1990, we went to Chicago. Paul Lee got the Dracula makeup. Paul Lee loved to stand in line at the makeup chair. They would try to get me to put makeup on. When I was announcing, I'd go, fuck you. I don't want that shit on my face. They know what I look like, and it ain't going to change now. And every once in a while, I'd let them put some powder on me so they could be done with it, and then I'd wipe it off. But Paulie loved the makeup, and I guess I understand why, because look at him now. But he was the vampire that night, and I think Missy Hyatt was a witch, and that's where Ole wanted the Southern boys to put the pumpkin on my head.
Was Shivani the Phantom of the Opera? Or
Shivani was the Phantom of the... what? No, JR was the Phantom of the Opera.
That's right.
JR was the Phantom of the Opera. And, and I had the verbal ability, by the way, say this may be Halloween Havoc, but I ain't gonna fucking let the baby faces put a pumpkin on my head and run around like a jack-o'-lantern with a pumpkin on my head, Ole, because that's too funny and silly. And he said, wow, that's what Nick Goulas would have done, because he hated Tennessee wrestling. I said, there's a difference. Nick Goulas drew money. We ain't drawing any. We're getting beat in a fucking preliminary match. Then the guys that we're in a program with are going to get beat later on in another preliminary match.
The booking there was great.
Yeah, and you ain't having them they ain't going to be putting a pumpkin on my head. I'm not going to run around looking like an idiot. He was pissed, and I didn't care, because 3 days later, we'd be done.
Can you imagine if that would have been the last image of you on WCW TV, and then you were done?
Yeah, exactly, and that's why that wasn't the last image of me on WCW TV. Because I was figuring we were fixing to be done, and I couldn't wait.
One more thing I'll say about this match. It's disappointing. You know, Adam Page came back and did that promo, which was pretty good. And then last week it was a step back, because all of a sudden he's drinking again and hanging out with the Dork Order.
Yeah.
It's a big moment for him to confront Omega, or anyone in the Elite. It's a big deal.
And he did it dressed as the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. So, and here's the thing for the footage of the package.
That's what I'm thinking. That's exactly what I was thinking.
For the footage of the package. Well, here's the number one contender, the top babyface in AEW, beating Twinkle Toes or whatever the fuck. And he's also dressed as the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. In 3 years, people are going to look at that and go, what the fuck was going on? If it's available for viewing in 3 years. Yeah, and Page's interview was fantastic. It wasn't just very good, it was fantastic. That's what he should have been. He was a main event guy. That's what he should have been all along. And then the next week, he's back to a beer in his hand talking to the job guys. And the next week, he's dressed as the fucking marshmallow. So you can't count on anything here. 1 step forward, 14 back. It's like they take a step up the hill and then fall ass over tea kettle all the way down to the bottom. And then their fucking suitcase lands on their head. Anyway, that was this week's wrestling.